Hello and welcome to Pivotal People. Today we're going to be speaking to Sanjay Panchal. Sanjay is partner at Livingbridge. Hello Sanjay and welcome to Pivotal People. It's good to see you here today.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
I'd like to get to know you a little bit more and find out a bit about what got you to the heights of your career where you are now. Tell me a little bit about your growing up and your childhood.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Luton in the UK, and then when I was 6, my family moved to Toronto.
Wow.
So I spent my most of my youth, actually all of my youth, growing up in Toronto. Went to university there as well. Had a great childhood. My parents, so my mum was worked for a pharma company doing regulatory affairs. My father's an engineer, and so science and engineering and maths were always a big feature in our household and in our family as well. My grandfather was a headmaster, so education was part of the family. We've got doctors in the family, so sciences and maths was always, we were in and around that as kids all the time. And actually, luckily, we had very good role models as parents because they were able to sort of show us and lead by example how to be professionally successful, but also have a great personal life, and that balanced. And I think we were very fortunate to have that. And education was a big thing in our household, so it was your ticket to freedom, and focusing on education was, the route to doing what you wanted to do. And so, we had a great childhood. And then I went to university in Toronto, just 2 hours outside. Spent a couple of years working in Toronto, and then moved here in 2008. And it was interesting in my childhood because we had, in our household, it was very science and maths driven, or, we were exposed to that. But actually, a lot of my classmates in school, their parents were small business owners.
Okay.
And so actually having exposure to a more commercial and business-oriented mindset was part of my daily life as well. So interestingly, when I grew up, I always thought I was going to become a genetic scientist.
Really?
Because that's what was fascinating for me, particularly in high school, I was doing, all the, trigonometry, algebra, calculus, biology, chemistry, physics, but actually, and also alongside that, taking a few business courses. And it was my marketing teacher who actually encouraged me to pursue a business program because she said you'd be great at this, and it wasn't something I'd really thought about until I sort of saw that I could actually do this quite well. So that it's always been either sciences, maths, and then commercial in some aspect.
So the education, I know you've got nothing to compare it with over here, but do you have children?
No, I don't.
No, so I think having nothing to compare it with over here, but the education system over there, is it very different?
So we were fortunate in that we grew up in, I think actually the physical infrastructure and the environment you're in makes a big difference to where you're at. And actually we lived in a relatively new area for most of my youth. And we had new schools, new buildings, great teachers actually. My first job was for the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. And in their investing arm, investing in businesses. The ecosystem around teachers is always well supported in Canada. That's probably changed a little bit now, but we always had great education, great infrastructure, and it was a pleasant environment to learn in.
Good. So what brought you back to the UK?
I was in Spain on holiday with my family, and realized I couldn't die without living in Europe. Is literally what happened, and so I walked into my boss's office after coming from holiday and said I want to move to London and transfer.
So you transferred with the same company?
Yeah, transferred, came over here with them, and that was literally it. It was kind of an impulsive decision. I can't give you any rhyme or reason. It wasn't anything that was super well thought through, but it just felt like something I wanted to do.
What about what you're doing now? Tell me about what you do now.
Yeah, so I lead the healthcare team at a mid-market private equity firm called Livingbridge. We are a UK mid-market private equity firm, and our whole reason for being is to support entrepreneurs, founders, management teams in helping them fulfill and unlock the potential in their businesses. Often what you find, particularly in care, are really ambitious and driven individuals with their heart in the right place that want to build great businesses. And those businesses often get to a stage where they need help. And where we come in is having done over a couple hundred investments across a number of sectors, but specifically in care as well, is hopefully one, help them de-risk that growth journey by bringing some experience around the table that helps them navigate through challenges we've seen before and what will be new to them, but also help them be ambitious and take a bit more risk and feel comfortable doing that with somebody around the table that can sort of give them the confidence to be a bit more bold.
So why healthcare?
It's interesting. So as I said, in my family, it's interesting. My wife pointed this out, that most of people in my family are either involved in care or education in some aspect. So I think there's just something in the blood. But also, for me, I'm really passionate about the sector. I think I'm a big believer that most people in care really want to do the right thing, and helping them, bringing the skill sets I can to help them do more of that is really valuable. So while I'm really interested in commercial business models and how you grow a business, I'm also really interested in the impact that delivers. And particularly now, given the challenges we have in the care system, where demand and supply are so out of sync, it requires a lot of innovation, a lot of fresh thinking to be able to, address the challenges that we've got.
Yeah, I think we are an interesting industry. We've got a lot of fascinating people within it, as I'm sure you've seen from the Pivotal People interviews. We've had a lot of people that have given us some really, really interesting backgrounds, and yours is too. Have you still got family in Canada? You still go back over there?
Yeah, I go back 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Make sure I make time to, I made a decision for myself when I moved here that if I'm going to build my career here, I make an effort to go back and make time to go back, and that's kind of worked out perfectly, actually.
Lovely. What about Spain? Spain wasn't an option? You said you ended up you started
I think the reality, well, it's one, I've got family here, so that makes it easier, but also the business environment, the sort of cultural context is just much easier to be based in London.
So what about your future?
Yeah.
What do you see your future?
Still really involved in healthcare. I think there's so much to do.
Yeah.
And I hopefully have something to add to that in terms of just a personal philosophy and a way of operating. And hopefully the really fascinating and interesting thing for me is when you've got people with very strong care skill sets and you combine that with people with commercial skill sets. And hopefully that's what we bring to create great businesses that withstand the test of time, set examples for how to do things properly. We're big believers in, if you focus on care and outcomes and you focus on looking after your people, that the commercial success kind of follows.
Absolutely.
And continuing to support businesses that share that philosophy and that I can look back on in 10, 15 years and say, you know what, we helped build a series of amazing businesses that did things in the right way, that had a real impact on the sector. That for me is super rewarding. Yeah. We're all very fortunate to do what we do, and therefore doing it where you can have real impact is a bonus on top of that, and it's where we should be spending our time.
Absolutely, and we also know which care homes to choose when we get older, don't we?
Well, exactly.
Digital transformation since I was in care has changed from a single sheet of paper for a care plan to a big wad file for a care plan, to now the click of a button for a care plan.
Yeah.
And it's not just care planning, it's across the whole organisation, and the only way we can work really as care homes now is to get digital.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your involvement in the digital world.
Yeah, so we've got the luxury of having been investors in a lot of software and technology businesses, but also being very steeped in healthcare.
Yeah.
So for us, where you can combine healthcare and technology is a really, really interesting area. And our last 3 investments into healthcare have actually all been either tech enablement or healthcare software businesses.
Yeah.
And I think, given the demand supply dynamics in care more generally, and the complexity and the acuity of needs that are arising in people who need care, there's a huge role for technology to play.
Absolutely.
And I kind of break it down into 3 buckets. One is, how do you make care better, safer, more compliant? So improve the quality of care that you deliver using technology. One is, how do you allow care to be a more human experience by taking the time that people spend giving care and increasing that by taking away the amount of admin and paper filing, administration that they have to do. Thirdly is, how do you actually improve the quality of care and deliver a better caring experience for individuals? And I think where we're at today in technology is we're tackling a lot of the basic foundational stuff around how do you get rid of the admin, and how do you allow people to spend more time giving care. We're quickly moving into a world, or we will be moving into a world, where actually we can then start using technology to improve the care experience. So how do you have more information about an individual? How do you use data to predict how that individual's condition might evolve and intervene earlier, but also how do you empower carers with tools that can help them make a better judgment around an individual and the care they need, and really start personalizing care pathways for individuals. And so we invested in Nourish in March 22. Nourish is a digital care planning business, and we think of Nourish as a care business first and a technology business second. And that's really important, because actually what we're trying to do is move the needle on care outcomes. It just happens to be that the way we do that is through a technology solution, and that's a really important mindset. And we're really excited about that, because I think carers are crying for it. They're crying for help, and there is real power in these tools. But there's sort of, in healthcare in particular, because you're constantly balancing change with managing risk. And what we're trying to do with Nourish is help the whole industry navigate this digital transformation and make the most of it, such that you end up with, if you looked at every care metric in 10 years, you want to say it's improved. That would be success for us. Is, people carers are feeling happier, individuals' conditions are being managed better, and the care outcomes they're receiving are improving.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the care planning systems that we have in place now has changed the care shift enormously. For one thing, the carers didn't have direct access to the care plans. They've got them on pods or whatever now. They've got access to that all the time. And they don't sit there with a trolley full of files at the end of the shift. At least 3 people for half an hour in my previous homes would sit there writing the daily notes up, and it's so easy now to track everything, and so easy to make sure that everybody has a care plan that the whole team are sharing, and
it's safer. And people feel more confident doing their jobs. So we all know that in this industry, care stress, anxiety is a big issue. But actually, if we can use technology to make them feel more comfortable, that's half the battle, and more confident in doing what they do.
I think, and technology itself, I mean, we've worked with people who have had technology that's monitoring people at night from under their bed. That's just that they can, it's monitoring their vitals, and it means that we're not having to check people all the time.
Exactly.
Worst thing in the world for night shifts is going around and checking everyone, because people then wake up.
It disrupts their sleep.
Absolutely.
It actually impacts their care progression and their progression of their condition. So, and I think one hurdle we have to get over or think about is actually, being relatively comfortable sharing some of that data, and that data being used for the greater good, so that we can amalgamate data and synthesize it in a way that we can make decisions based on it, and improve it. And so I think that's as a culture, we need to get over that culture barrier of sharing our data, as long as it's sort of safe and not used, abused. But I think that's really important.
No, it is. And I think you're right, they're changing for the positive. I think going forward, we're going to have to have a lot more digital technology. We're going to have medication, care planning. We're going to have HR programs. The HR programs save us a huge amount of time and effort to have all that training and all that
online
all that information about all of our staff on in one place is much easier, and to keep us on top of things, to make sure that we're managing the staff team really well. Because as a care home manager, you don't just have one job.
Exactly.
You've got lots of jobs, so you've got to manage the HR, you've got to manage the care planning and the medication and the facilities and everything else. So to have that all digitally is going to be a big help in the future, and save time when we're going to have less and less people to look after. Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.